If your tingling hands and arms are stopping you from getting work done or just enjoying life in general, and you've already tried every exercise, stretch, or pill out there with little to no result, then you have to try these two moves that can almost guarantee your doctor has never showed you, starting with what I like to call cross fiber friction. Now, this is an easy move to perform on your own, but over the past 6 years of being a sports massage therapist, I have learned several tricks with this specific technique in order to make it more effective, especially when it comes to nerve pain. But first off, where exactly are you going to target with this technique? No, it's not going to be the wrist or the hands. It's actually going to be the side of the neck, known as the scalenes. Now, this small group of muscles is the first place your nerves and blood vessels pass through from the spine into the shoulder and into the hands. And because you end up using these muscles almost every single day, thanks to a combination of chest breathing, having your head protruded forward for too long, bad posture, and even having your head tilted one way or another, all this leads to these muscles becoming shortened and tightened, resulting in some kind of compression on your nerves and blood vessels, resulting in that nervy finger and hand pain. And this is why you want to start off with a cross fiber friction technique in order to loosen up these muscles and the tissues around it so that the nerves and blood vessels can easily pass through and they're not getting compressed. Now, before we get into the technique, just start off by warming up the muscles by simply rubbing it back and forth and side to side, going through the entire muscle with low to medium pressure. The reason why we are doing this is because not only is it going to allow more blood flow into the muscle, which is what we need in order for those tissues to be able to separate, but we're also searching for the most tender spot that you can find because we're going to be working on it later on. So now that you're done, let's get into the actual cross fiber friction technique. When you take a look at the scalenes, we can see that they are running from head to shoulder, right? From top to bottom. And because of this, we know that the muscle fibers are going up and down, which means in order to go across the muscle fibers, your technique, your movement is going to be going back and forth from the front of the body towards the back and vice versa. Now, considering there are 3 scalenes in total and that the nerves and blood vessels are running straight through it, we can just simply go over it as a general rule of thumb. But if you want to be a lot more specific, then here's that first trick we can do with this actual technique. What we're going to be doing here is actually targeting the anterior and the posterior scalene by simply protruding or retracting our head, which is going to allow one of them to contract and the other one to stretch out. So first things first, what you need to know here is that you're basically working between the SCM and the upper traps / the levator scapula. Between those two muscles that create a triangle, and inside of this triangle, you're going to find your 3 scalene. Now, don't stress too much about trying to pick out which one is which specifically. Our goal here is basically work in the general area, because by just simply working on this general area, we will be able to loosen up the fascia around it. And when you start to work on that general area, you'll be able to naturally find the most tender spots and work on it. So now that we have an orientation of the neck, start off by simply doing a retraction of the chin towards the head, basically doing a chin tuck. And what this is going to do is allow the SCM to get stretched while the upper traps area is going to shorten. But this also means that the anterior scalenes are going to get stretched while the posterior are going to be slightly retracted or contracted. Now, in this position, what I like to do here is work on the stretched muscle first. And by doing this, what we're going to be doing is basically going right behind the the SCM, and targeting that medial scalene and in front of it. And basically we're just trying to rub it and push it forward towards the front of the body as it's stretched out. And by doing this, we're basically just trying to open up that anterior scalene a little more because it's stretched out. So as you start to peel it, it wants to naturally peel away a little faster, a little bit rough as well, to be honest. So just embrace for a little bit of tenderness. But with that said, you can basically go one direction here with the neck retracted. And then we can do it again by going the opposite way, by protruding our chin forward, but now working on the posterior side and then into the upper traps. So basically your upper traps and your SCM, those two borders, are what you're stopping at or you're pushing into from the medial side and out. You can always kind of start in the medial section, and then whether you are protruded or retracted is going to depend on what direction you are pushing. Go ahead and do each section for about 30 seconds to 2 minutes to work on your technique number one. Now, if this is a little bit too much work or you just feel like it's a little too difficult to target the specific muscle, then try this other technique out as well. For this second technique, what you're going to be doing is going across the entire muscle by doing a cross fiber friction technique, but instead, you're now going to be either having the entire muscle shortened or lengthen, and you can do this by doing a lateral neck stretch. So if you are working on your left side like I am now, and if I wanted to work on them while they are stretched out, I would tilt my head to the opposite direction, which is going to allow those muscles to get stretched out, and it allows them all to get stretched out somewhat evenly. You can be specific about this, but we're not going to get into that. And of course, if you want to go the opposite direction with having it in a shortened position, then you just got to tilt it to the side and then let it go. Let your neck go basically, or just do it laying down, because then if you're doing it standing up, your neck's kind of tense, holding your head up. So by doing it lying face down, tilting your head and then relaxing, the muscles have a chance to relax fully as you do the techniques, and then this way they can actually release. Now, this might be a little rough for some of you, right? It might be a little more advanced for some of you when you're doing this technique, or at least you're not ready for this yet. And if that is the case, try out this second technique that is probably one of my favorites. It is called the pin and stretch. And you've actually been doing a small version of it already. What we're going to be doing here is pinning down that most tender spot that you found within the scalenes. But now from here, we're simply going to stretch it out while keeping it pinned down. So for example, once again, working on my left side, I'm simply going to pin down the most tender spots. I'm then going to hold it there as I tilt my head in the opposite direction in order to stretch out that muscle. So you can imagine here, I'm pinning down the top surface of the muscle as the bottom surface, the fascia and all that, is moving through it. Or sorry, vice versa, the other way, fascia on top of muscle. And by doing that, basically, we're allowing those tissues to glide on top of each other, which allows them to be unstuck and become loose, and therefore loosen up and allow movement. And a fun little tip here as well, you can actually press in the opposite direction that you are stretching. So since it is anchored in the first and second rib, right, the shoulder area, and then our head is the part that is moving the other attachment point for the scalenes, what we can actually do here is push towards the direction of the anchor, in this case, the rib and the shoulder, as it's in a shortened position. And then from here, you can then stretch it out. So you can imagine almost basically, instead of just going straight down and then laying a slide, right, in one direction, we're now pinning it and pushing it in the opposite direction it wants to slide, which will hopefully loosen up those tissues even more. Try each technique out for about 1 to 2 minutes on each side, and then let me know in the comments how it goes. See you in the next one.